Hi everyone. I'm proud to negate the topic today, not because I don't like art, but rather because I understand that the real problem is high stakes testing. I also understand that throwing some money at the problem but not addressing the foundational causes of that problem is a poor use of resources and actually masks that problem. Thank you everyone for being here. It's an important debate. I'm proud to be a part of it. My opponent uses two articles to begin with. He uses a Huffington Post article to discuss how the United States has been losing its ranking internationally based on its education system, or its education system has been losing its ranking. And then he references a Washington Times article that says that we've lost 10 ranking spots in some recent amount of time. Please collapse these together. This really misunderstands the problem, right? Because the problem is not that art has been lacking from the United States education system. It's because standardized testing has been integrated into that problem. The problem is that high stakes testing is a horrible model. Okay. The next argument I want here is on inherency, and it's a stock issues argument, right? And the argument I'm going to make for stock issues is that stock issues is a theoretical argument that says that competitors must have a on face or a prima facie complete case. And I'm going to make the argument that Jared lacks both a coherent inherency argument as well as a coherent solvency story. So let's talk about inherency first. So Jared's argument on inherency is that the initial reason why there is an inherent barrier is that our society has valued art less, right? My argument in response to this is that by simply increasing the amount of money for art programs doesn't mean that people are going to somehow now value art any differently. As a matter of fact, people have had the opportunity to, in like the example would be PTA meetings or something like that, or they could go to their congressperson and say, we really want you to value education more. But people haven't done that, and simply making money available for art certainly does not do that. The next point here that he makes is that high stakes testing causes students to take sometimes twice as many or double up on their English or math classes. So the argument that I want here is that the case actually simply doesn't get rid of the desire or the pressure for students to take a second math or an English class. As a matter of fact, it's going to put more pressure on students because they're going to have to take additional classes now, art classes, right? But they still have all of those pressures that are put on those students because of the system requires this high stakes testing. Please drop down next to the solvency argument. I want 2 points here on Jared's point that there's going to be an increased money for art programs in schools. The first point here is that increased money doesn't increase students' time. And so students are going to still feel the pressure of having to take a second English or a second math class, but now they actually have less time to do so, right? Because they have to fit in an art class within that schedule. The next point I want here is actually a turn, right? Because this actually makes the problem worse. There's more classes, there's actually now more stress because there's less time for students to take care of this stuff, all because of standardized testing, not because art has been removed from that system. In terms of solvency, then Jared moves to his Finland example. He talks about how Finland's an excellent case study example, right? The main piece of evidence I'm going to use here is actually a Scholastic.org article, and Scholastic.org did an analysis of international education systems, and I agree, Finland has a pretty awesome system, so let's talk about it. You are right, Finland does offer nearly twice as many art classes. There's a lot of other things that Finland does. I'll give you a few examples. Students usually start school in Finland at around age 7, and they speak three languages fluently at that time. There's virtually no poverty in Finland. There's also socialized medicine there. There's free food for students at school. College is paid for students as you progress in the education system there, and teachers are treated like doctors. So my guess is that Finland has a really awesome education system for a variety of reasons, and art is one of those reasons, but probably all of those other reasons I just mentioned are pretty relevant too. The next argument I want here is an off-case argument, and it's a disadvantage called masking. The first point is that standardized testing still exists after the case. But now advocates can point to this program and say, see, the system's horrible, standardized testing is horrible, but at least now we have art. The next point I want here is that standardized testing, and let me be clear about this, when we're talking about standardized testing, essentially we're talking about anything that's a derivative of No Child Left Behind. And the article that I'm referencing here is called fairtest.org, and fairtest.org is like a clearinghouse for a lot of really interesting content on standardized testing. And one of the analyses that they did is that there are an increased dropout rates, a decreased graduation rate, and an increase in GED rates whenever standardized testing is present. And specifically on the GED point, right? All of these, I guess, would make it more difficult for students to actually access college. So the next point then is the masking point, right? Which is that the plan doesn't solve the problem. It doesn't solve any of the problems of high stakes testing. In fact, what the plan says is that art is good. I agree with this. I think that you should agree with this, but you need to ask yourself, does the plan get rid of the real pathology or the totally artificial pressures that it puts on students to be able to perform in those high stakes world? So when we have the presence of high stakes testing, we have an increase in dropout rates, we have a decrease in graduation rates, and we have an increase in GEDs. So what if we're evaluating the quality or the efficacy of education? What other metrics are we using besides these? Any system that allows standardized testing to continue and masks that problem is a part of the problem. Thank you.